waited for this day. Tom Lawrence is sitting there. One part of finding the primary, but a very, very successful and very good chiropractor running two big clinics.
One big clinic, one big clinic, yeah.
Massive clinic. And also I'm hoping he's going to talk a little bit about aligning the north.
What do we talk about with new grads, and like what would be the most impact for me to give? Like, what did I wish I knew now in comparison to like when I first started? So I've been down lots of rabbit holes recently trying to get my head around what to go for. But I think we're going to go through today why specificity is important, and yeah, kind of challenge you a little bit on alignment and what you think proper alignment is, because I think in our profession we have a little bit of a warped viewpoint. So yeah, let's go for that. So let's see if this works. Am I in? Yay! So here we go. So this is Becky Lawrence. This is actually Becky Lawrence and me, and they're my two beautiful kids, Peter and Rosie. I graduated in 2012, and I'm, like Chris said, one of the two Toms to make it easy for finding the primary. I've been running practice for like 14 years, but the real passion project for us two is finding the primary, and that is giving you guys systems or making life easy on finding out where to adjust. This is why specificity is so important, because like you're going to see in this talk, unless we have proper testing, things don't always go the way we want it to go. So we've been running Find the Primary now for 5 years. We run about 6 different courses. I'll talk about those at the end. But it's giving practitioners confidence, no matter what technique you're in, whatever protocol you're in, to turn around with somebody on the bench and be able to go, the most prominent area of this person's nervous system to adjust is there. And that's the question. I don't know if anyone saw on Crystal's social media that I put forward and asked, like, because we've all, well, I had it, especially when I first started, and I'm sure it's a pain point for other people, but has anyone ever have you been adjusting somebody and the adjustments feel really good and you feel like everything's going smoothly, but the guys just aren't getting results? Like, just put your hands up or do whatever you need to on that, 100%. And the frustrating part of adjusting somebody and then everything being good one week and then next thing having this crash or having a flare up, and that is where we started with Find the Primary. That's where we started thinking about things about there's got to be a better way and there's got to be more consistency. That the ability for somebody to get consistency is about us being able to ensure that we're following a proper protocol. And it's when we're actually adjusting into ease. Now, we're going to talk about that in a bit. But when we're adjusting where the brain is telling us to, then we know that things are safe and things are going to have progressive standards of how people move forward, instead of adjusting inconsistently and potentially going against what the brain wants. And that's where we start feeling resistance and adjustment. So I want to try and challenge you, because maybe people have the wrong concept to begin with about alignment. And when we get taught a lot about, or we get taught a lot, and we have these ideas in our profession about having somebody on the bench, and our objective of that person is looking at their structure, looking at how they're holding themselves, and thinking, well, actually, we need to try and get this person who's rotating on the right and one leg's longer than the other, and there's rotation in the neck and we can see the upper trap's firing. We have to get them into alignment. Now, I challenge you that maybe that's the wrong concept for some people, because maybe when we're doing that, we're thinking that they have to be aligned, but actually maybe that's not what they need. So again, is real alignment or real objectives for somebody who's laying on the bench in front of us, is real objective about alignment being where the body is lying back to neutral, or is it being in aligned with what that brain and what that body connection needs? I'm going to say it again. Is it about the person on the bench who may be laying not in a neutral state, getting them back to neutral, or is it about actually working out what that body needs and being in alignment with their needs? That's a big concept, and that's something that, that I feel strongly about. And when we talk about this, we know that the body is intelligent. We talk about this all the time. So we talk about innate, and we talk about the fact that innate is regulating the body and keeping it as healthy as possible. But what that means is when we're looking at somebody, the changes that we're seeing in them is a smart adaptation. So we always, like, if we're talking and communicating on bench talk, we might be saying, if you get an infection or have an illness and your body's trying to fight a virus or a bacteria, then your body will raise its temperature. And that's got a purpose. It's a smart adaptation. Your body's raising its temperature to try and help fight against the bacteria or the viruses there to create an immune reaction. So obviously don't go and grab your paracetamols. We need to manage it, but make sure that we're not taking away that smart adaptation, because that's going to leave you in a worse state. Now, hands up if you can get behind that. Hands up if we can get behind that concept. Yeah, we've seen some nods on the thing. Amazing. So why is that any different to somebody coming and laying on the bench and say they're laying there and they've been under strain and been driving and all this sort of stuff and long distance, and then they lay down and their body's contorted into these positions? Maybe they've injured the disc, maybe what it is, wherever it is. So why do we then go, why do we then, in the majority of the profession, jump and go, right, well, there's brace in here, so I'm just going to slam it and try and get it to reduce down? Because the concepts aren't different. So we need to work out how we filter through all that mess to work out actually what's proactive. Now, this is something that challenged me, like, 7 years ago when we started thinking about fine primary. Because I was coaching one of the soft tissue therapists we had, and we had an 80-year-old bloke who had bad knee arthritis. And we were talking about, the practitioner was talking to me about, I'm just not sure what to do. And we keep working with him. He has these big flare-ups and all this sort of stuff. And every time we work on him, he has a reaction. And then 2 days later, he feels better. Then he comes in, then we do it again, but we're not getting any further forward. We just seem to be inflaming him and bringing him back. And then it dawned on me, maybe the tightness, I'm going to do this, that was around the knee was actually protecting him because he had bad arthritis in the knee. And actually, when we were working on that muscle, or he was working on that musculature, that was actually taking away stability. So there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way than just us looking at them and going, I see this and we therefore do X. There has to be a conversation with the body and a conversation with innate. And if we can consistently do that, well, let's go back a step. So then a lot of the questions as a new grad will be, well, frick me, doesn't that mean that every adaptation we see in the body is there for a purpose? So why the frick are we adjusting them? There comes the challenge. Sure, we should leave everything alone. The body will regulate on itself. Well, that comes down to the order of neuroplastic changes that happen in the body. Okay. So if I've got somebody who's coming in and they go through change one, and that, let's face it, is designed to be a short-term adaptation to get them away from stress or for stress being moved, and then the body's supposed to regulate back, but the body has not been allowed to regulate back, then that adaptation, instead of being in the moment and positive, can become fatigue. And that's where the problem starts. But within, say, that adaptation or that overuse of resources, the brain's far too smart to just leave it at that. So then what we get is we get a secondary adaptation and neuroplastic change layered on top, and then another, and another, and another. Okay? Within all this, there becomes a priority in the connections, which we have to unpick. That makes sense. We can't jump in majority of times. The more layers we have, the more an adaptation gets buried within neuroplasticity, and the changes become more chronic within it. But when we're adjusting, we can't, the body in majority of cases is not going to allow us to go straight down to the deep bit. The easiest change for that brain at that point is to remove the ones which are now inefficient. Some of them will be efficient still, some of them will be inefficient. So again, short-term changes are good. Long-term changes that then can't support create more changes. Some will be positive, some will be negative. But the way we have to work with the brain with an increased layer of complication isn't about just taking them all out at once. It's about taking the ones which we can unpick at the time, so things become more neutral and innate can work better. So within all that, we cannot do that on a one-way conversation. There is no way of doing that on a one-way conversation. What I mean by that is I cannot stand above a person on the bench and I cannot look at them, subjectively, objectively, and see on a single judgment call, say what is needed for that person there and then. What we must do with neurology, if we're saying we're working with the brain, is there must be a two-way conversation where there is a test pre and a test post. Okay, we have to have a test pre and a test post. If not, we are flying by the seat of our pants, and we are hoping that what we do creates change, which is inconsistent, instead of actually monitoring what the brain needs and following through consistently. That reason there is why people have crashes. That reason there, if we don't do it, if we don't have a two-way conversation, we're making judgment calls, is why people do so well and then plateau. We've got to make sure. And the easiest way to do that is a small input into the body, watch the reaction of the brain, see what happens, and then decide whether that is creating more complication, more adaptation, or stripping back those layers to make it easier for the brain to deal with things. Okay? So it's a little bit of input in and a little bit of input out, because if not, we don't know what helps and what hinders. And believe me, if you can remove a subluxation, you hell can create a subluxation, create more complication. And one of the big passions of me coming forward and doing this as finding the primary is because I do believe that our profession has become an adjustment center instead of a result center, and that's a hard pill to swallow. It is for me, because what we're actually doing is we concentrate a lot on and we'll pay thousands of pounds for our techniques and our hand skills, and we'll go to adjustment seminars where we'll practice the actual adjustment. But I don't think there's that many. I don't think there's enough focus in our profession on actually looking at where to put the tools and actually where to put the adjustment for consistency. And that's proper alignment. So we claim to be, I want you guys to come out of this going, okay, if we are going to be, and we're going to claim to be this brain and body connect specialist, then really the check and the test is the specialism, not the physical adjustment. Okay, it shouldn't be the adjustment, it should be the check and the understanding of where to place it. We've already covered all this. I think I'm going on. So with it all, an adjustment on its own, like we practice, cannot be an adjustment without being part of the protocol, no matter what it is. Without it, it's just manipulation. So it has to be a test that goes with it. Because if not, you're just guessing. You're just guessing on what can do. And with all that, whatever we do as a test we need to follow the brain's reaction to it. We really do, because there are protocols as well out there, and there's some fantastic ones, but there's a lot of them which, yet again, will do a test, but the objective findings post the test falls back into an alignment problem, as in, have the legs cleared up, they move their neck to one side more, like, as the reduced movement on one side now come to full range of motion. Like, I couldn't care less if the movement came back, as long as the body is showing us that they're stronger and they're more resilient to what they can do. Okay. Now, all these concepts, I'm not a freaking pioneer. Okay. This is not, I'm too dumb to pull this out of thin air. Okay. And I want to put this in because, especially with students, like, there is this campaign going on in the background about old text being out of date and out of mind, right? This stuff that I'm talking about now, I can send you documentation, is from the late 1800s and the early 1900s. Okay, there were pamphlets and leaflets, and there's a 30 to 40 page like handout booklet produced which talks about shotgun adjusted. Okay, and shotgun adjusting is where somebody walks up to the bench and they'll go, right, I can feel tightness, I can feel all these areas, this is resisted, bam, 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 bam. And that's your manipulation. That is just hitting hard spots to hope that they become clear. So even in the late 1800s, where we still didn't understand all the complexities of what was going on, there were still recordings about people reducing in resource management. having crashes, like not being able to cope with everything. And I don't mean from the physicality, I mean from the fact that they weren't getting the reaction. And that is where we need to have that awareness. Because again, if we're doing that, and I'm going to explain why in a minute, we can easily create subluxations. We can easily create subluxations. So why would that happen? Okay, because there are some ideas out there when I'm having talks, which is like, well, if we just stimulate in the brain, surely more is better. Like more stimulation for the brain is better. We should do more adjustments. We should do more adjustments on one session, hit more places, because it's all about proprioception shoving up. Okay, this is why it doesn't work. This is why shotgun adjusting can downregulate people. I want you to imagine your brain as a like project manager. It has a certain number of resources it has, okay? And it's got 3 different machines in front of it. So we've got the somatic nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, and that's running different sections, okay? But to run these 2 machines, we have a bank of tokens we can put in them, okay? But we've only got so much. We've only got so much a day to run it. Now, as we know, somatic system is all the things that are consciously run. So this is going to be looking at things like movement, chewing, talking, but also feedback from muscles. So there's a lot more coming up than there is going down, guys. There's more than 65% going up compared to the signals going down. Okay. But on the other side, we've got the machine that's running all the autonomic stuff. So we've got, I don't have to explain to you guys, heart, digestive system, immune system, everything's in there. Now, with the amount of tokens, the project manager can run both machines. But what he means is when he's running machines during the day to make sure you're alive and healthy, there's a little bit of reserve he has. He has a few tokens left. Now, dependent on what you guys do as chiropractors depends on how much we stimulate each machine additional. So when we're working with somebody and we place an adjustment, whether that is in the spine, in the soft tissue, whether that's in the organs, whether that is stimulation of cranial nerves, doesn't matter. Your brain is far too smart, and what will happen? Suddenly, one of the machines will demand more coins. So he has to take that out of his reserve and put one of the coins in the machines. This reserve is your available capacity. You, as a chiropractor, do not work on these 2 machines. You work on the available capacity only. And every adjustment you do creates a demand that he has to meet with a resource. So imagine he's got 10 tokens, okay? And this is the kicker. He's got 10 tokens in his bank after the machines have run. And how the machines eat the tokens is obviously dependent on how their body's functioning, whether they have immune system issues, whether they have heart problems, whether they have freaking chronic issues with soft tissue, whether they have chronic issues like disc herniations, okay? Each machine has a different demand. He's got 10 reserves in his bank, right? You do one adjustment to one area, and he can place as many tokens as is needed to run the machine, to meet that demand. And it's with the available capacity he's got that your brain can create a reaction. That innate can service the machines and create changes and create neuroplastic changes. But if I walk up to the person and I do 10 adjustments, bam, 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 and each one of those has a different demand of tokens, and he's only got 10, suddenly he has to spread those tokens out. He has to try and meet the demand. Now, 2 things will happen. Either the reaction will not be as good, or he hasn't got enough tokens. And when he doesn't have enough tokens, what do you think happens to the machines? Shut down. Guys, this is why comorbidities was a thing within COVID. It's the only thing neurological, I feel, that was communicated during that time, was the fact that we've seen a shutdown. If somebody's already dealing with some stuff, amazingly, they take on another low from a virus and they die. Like, what the fuck's all that about? No one connected the dots in between. Okay? So we have to look at the person in front of us, and we have to understand that we're only working with available capacity. And we have to work with innate. We have to understand that innate is controlling it, and we have to take our hats off as the doctors and say innate's the doctor, and actually watch and monitor how it's running things. Because if not, we can be unconstructive to how that person gets better. Now, if you noticed, one thing I did, by the way, that's where the art comes in. Because how the hell do you know how many people So the three-legged stool, art, philosophy, science, we're crossing some boundaries here. But the art as a practitioner isn't just about how good I am at moving C1 laterally. It's about watching that person and seeing what their reaction is and understanding when to stop and let them build the tokens back up. Or understanding that actually I've been working with Mavis for 3 months and her reactions have gone through a full change. The neuroplasticity is going to be like, the web is going to be lower, so therefore she's clearer, which means I can do more things. I've got more tokens to play with if I need. Okay? And that's a real art. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be some times that you get it wrong. I've got it wrong a few times. But understand with that, just with one extra adjustment, that we all should, after we've done an adjustment, should look at what their reaction is before we start adjusting something else. We need to give people time on the bench and monitor the reaction. I'll show you some of the reactions in a little bit as well. I've got a video to show you. And if that happens, give them, bring them back the next day, recheck, go again. Okay. Now, one thing I did say, remember when I talked about the machines, I'm like, whether I put an adjustment into the soft tissue or into an organ or into a, notice I use those different areas, because again, if we are truly saying that we are functional neurologists or we are working with the brain-body connection, there's one other thing we need to recognize. The brain doesn't care about spines as much as we think it does. Okay. That might be a central point where we start the profession where we were at, but we have to understand that if we are looking at the brain, there is a shit ton more things than just the spine as a core. Okay. And I want to show you this. This is one major thing. Okay. I want you to look at the homunculus. Okay. And I want you to look on the left-hand side of this screen, how much cortex dedication is to the eye, the nose, face, upper lip, lips, lower lip, teeth, gums, tongue, see all that on one side, yeah? And on the opposite side, I want you to look at the hand and the fingers, okay? And then I want you to just go back from the hand and just go up to the top of that cortex. And I want you to look at this little bit here called the trunk. Can you see it? Yeah. And the somatosensory side, again, even smaller section about the trunk, yeah? Can go up a little bit, next there, next there. Where is the most commonly adjusted area in the spine? Wow, that was a big pop for your ribs and your thoracics, okay? The cortex dedication on that is very, very small, okay? And when we are looking at neuroplastic changes, it can be freaking everywhere else. So we need to look not just at the spine. I'm not saying the spine isn't important, but we need to understand about extremities, and we need to understand about cranial, and we need to understand about organ and skin and fascia. That doesn't mean pick up a blade and go freaking ape and tongue on fascia. There are adjustments you can do within seconds on fascia which clear. Which, again, sound like I'm plugging. This is one of the big things in our fundamentals. We're going to get, we give you the skills, because the majority of chiropractors have been out 5, 10, 25, 30 years. I've never done an adjustment to the liver or to the skin. So there's we need to expand our eyes other than what it was set years ago. And if we can do this, and we can actually move through and make it so much easier for innate to actually funnel resource in the right way, suddenly we create simplicity out of the hardest freaking cases that are in front of us. Because the objective doesn't go from clearing someone's 30 years of pain or clearing someone's bad back to actually, in this session, we just need resources to be put in better places to make it easier for innate, which moves them eventually out of a sympathetic drive into parasympathetics, and then all the shit that usually presents as symptoms starts to clear with consistency. Because majority of things that we see, such as chronic muscular tension in the core, is a chronic response to pain. I shouldn't even have said pain. Why did I mention pain? It's a chronic sympathetic dominant response. Okay, like weakness into arms, limbs, core, chronic sympathetic response. Changes in heart regulation, change in digestion, change in immunity, chronic sympathetic dominant response. Now, so be mindful when you've got your mates at uni or in different practice coming to you, I have a really complicated case coming in with this, and I've diagnosed of blah, blah, blah. Chronic sympathetic dominant response. Like, let's move people towards ease and into alignment of what their brain actually needs. But the beauty is, when we work with somebody and we actually can hit the right buttons for sympathetics to dampen and parasympathetics to come up, there are immediate responses too. Okay. Now, I've shown Chris, I've shown this video at UCA, McTim, Edinburgh. You've probably seen this 101 times. I apologize. But this is from one of our first adjusting seminars we ran 5-6 years ago. This was after testing on one adjustment. This is an anterior chest expansion adjustment. Okay. Now, what I want you to do, I want you to watch Joe on the bench. Okay. I want you to notice changes that's happening in Joe. So we're building up to the impulse. Watch what's happening. Watch Joe. Watch his lips in a minute. What he's doing with his body positioning. Rapid eye movements. High sensory areas come online. Okay. We talk a lot, or you hear in the profession, expect miracles, right? And these miracle cases that's happening. If you can hit the right places, which actually helps somebody dive into parasympathetics, there are immediate changes on the bench that you will see. But majority of the time, we aren't looking for them. We haven't told them that they're going to be there. We don't wait for them to occur. What we do is we talk about the weather, the next door neighbor's cat, and we try and get the next adjustment in before they've even had chance to integrate. Okay? So this is happening all the time when you get the right places. You just got to allow it to happen and give the chance for the guy controlling the machine innate to actually put the tokens in the right place, recount what's happening, get some back, or decide what it's going to do next. So what do we see? We saw a breath change. So we saw an abdominal breath. We saw a reduction of chest breathing. Okay, high sensitivity areas back online. Licking, rapid eye movements. I'm not sure you could see it on the screen, but flushing came back in. They're the cool fix. That's why I'm passionate, because if we can get more reactions like that, we have more consistent changes in people's health overall, not better movement in people's necks. There's so many parts to that as well that you can build on. Now, Chris said at the beginning, you never stop learning, because once you get, you don't. It's an experience bank and it's going to continue. But the ways then you can start layering adjustments to even be in more alignment when you're doing a setup is to the depth that you adjust, to the kind of impulse, the speed, to the support of the person pre and post. I don't mean like rubbing them on the neck, like, you've got this. I mean, actually, physically, are we holding them? Are we taking our hands off quick? Are we just standing and controlling? Are we putting pressure into them? Are we using a fast adjustment or slow adjustment? Are we efficient in how we actually adjust? So we are actually being very specific on where that is. Is it in the right place? That's the primary stuff. What's our position to them? Are we close to them or we're away from them? Are we using their reflexes with them? There's so many layers. And this isn't a one course thing. This is something where even now with experience, I'm sure Chris will be, I'm still learning, I'm still refining, and Chris is probably still doing the same. But here's my bottom line. This is where I'm going to stop ranting. And I hope you've got something out of this. The bottom line from everything that I want you guys to take away is care should always include testing. The idea of just walking up to somebody and being like, I feel it's here, or this feels like a fuzzy area, and we're bashing them and then tapping them on the back and letting them go. I just don't feel that we're in alignment with what that person needs. So it needs to be pre and post. The alignment has got to be with what the brain needs. We're not the expert, the nervous system is, and you should listen to it. Listen to innate. We put it on a pedestal, then we try and take the credit for it. Like, we're never going to understand innate. We just need to follow in what it shows us. We can do that by putting small input in, judging the reaction, and doing more of that. Follow the good stuff. If it's good, do more of it. If it's bad, freaking note it down and run away from it. Your guys' your power is in the check, not the crack. And I worry that if we are pushing more manipulation and base care realistically than adjustments, we're going to just get chiropractors who crack people. And without testing, it's not an adjustment, it's manipulation, guys. Cool. So I just saw somebody put a thing up saying like, I want to go on one of the courses. Awesome. Okay. Let me just explain a little bit about how it's structured, because we've got events coming up all the time. Okay. So while I'm here, am I right to plug now before we take questions, just while I'm in the flow of it? Yeah, cool. So there's different things. We start with one course, which was we need people to know where to adjust. And we spent freaking years developing it. That is your fundamentals. That is finding the area to work on. Okay. But then we also realize, even though I'm slating doing technique, you still need to do technique. You still need to actually develop our hand skills, because if not, you don't have the tools to be able to work on that area. So then we've got adjusting modules. And then we've got a final thing, which is the advanced. And the advanced, you can only do that once you've done the fundamentals minimum, because that is going through all the layers and all the energetics and all the things that can create higher levels of changes than just movements towards parasympathetics. Because at that stage, we can start talking about, do we actually need to do some adjustments to give people a kick up the arse or not. So that political Chris, I'm not sure. But yeah, we've got those. We've also got events coming up where we do it once a year. We take a group of up to 25, 26 people. I think we've got about 6 places left for January. We take them into the country, we look after them, we get a beautiful retreat venue with pool and all this sort of stuff, and we work on you. Like, all of the courses are designed for us to develop our skills for other people. This is about developing skills for you, clearing yourself. Chris has done stuff like this before. This is amazing. If you want more information, we'll talk to you. But the immersion is going to always is at the beginning of the year, and so that you can clear your head ready for the year coming. And then we've got the dates. We're actually teaching in Manchester this week. If it wants to come quick, I'll give you a real deal for a student place or a new grad place. And then we'll release the dates post that with adjustments. But if it's all right with Chris, I'll share them because we're going to change a few. So I am now going to open it up to any questions, and I'm going to shut up. And I hope I haven't bored anyone. I hope I've inspired someone.